All right, boys. It is a gorgeous day in Tennessee. Thank God for spring weather. Almost summer, but heck, I've enjoyed it. Got the heck burned out of me yesterday fishing, but isn't that just part of it? Glad to wet a line again, but just wanted to do. This is kind of for you, Flint's Ball brother. I just kind of wanted to show what is either the what you would call the morphology or transition of just a Greenbrier point. All the different basal styles of a Greenbrier, all the way to here. After this one, and we'll get to this bad boy. Ho ho ho, we'll get to her. And after this one, we got Pine Tree. Pine Tree. Here's the one from the recent video. Let's see if I can snatch it without. Here's the one from the recent video with beautiful quartz inclusion on the base. Classic pine flaking. Classic pine four-way bevel. No lean. She's evenly balanced. And again, just a classic pine tree base. I brought out 2 or 3 different pine trees. Here's another one I found with KB on one of his legendary sites. Here's another one I found just behind my house. Again, a different style base. This one's got more of a concave base, but again, a pine tree. And here's the different style pine. Just the little bitty one. I can't remember what this one's called, but this is a pine tree as well with just, insane flaking on it. Love that little piece, but. And again, just wanted to make this mostly about the star of the show, which is the Greenbrier, but we did not catch this on video, and had we, good Lord, would it have just been an epic freaking year. Epic end of the year. I'll give you boys one guess what that is right there. One freaking guess. That is a Cumberland Clovis, and would have been one of the finest I've ever touched. I mean, I got to hold that Barnes / Cumberland Clovis up my bosses from Ohio, found on the Ohio River. Y'all get to see. Granted, it's an intact specimen, but it was a little thicker and probably more of a Barnes point. The Cumberland Clovis, gosh, it kind of turned to a Barnes by the time it gets up to Ohio and Michigan for sure. It's kind of, again, the morphology of it and the changing stylistically, but the Cumberland is completely a separate fluted point from the traditional Clovis. It's its own culture, and strictly pretty much found here in Middle Tennessee and, northern Alabama and Kentucky, just kind of all around us right here. But my gosh, this thing is ground all the way up to the break. All the way up to the break. Just barely, where is it? Just barely feel right there. Just that last little flake scar. You could just feel the start of what is a grind, or the grinding ending. Right there. But gosh, man, that thing would have been gigantic. Would have been hafted all the way up this flute. Wrapped all the way around. Just a stellar piece. KB, you'd like seeing that, brother. The basal bevel. You don't see like a traditional Clovis's. A lot of Clovis points you see will have a beveled base, or basal beveling, whatever you want to call it, same thing. But thought that was really neat, and I could pull out some broke Clovis's that broke paleo fluted points that have the beveled base, but this one does not. Just an insanely well worked piece. And congratulations, old Josie Wales, broke or not. I know where he'll be back. And you couldn't keep me from that site either after finding this. But where he found this, we'll get to the star of the show. Where he found that bad boy is where the Greenbriers are also coming. And the Greenbrier is a direct descendant of the Clovis people. Just threw in the late paleo, transitional paleo paint rock. And y'all have seen this one before too. I have not been able to identify it 100%, but it is most certainly a paleo point. And again, ground all the way up to here. Ground all the way up. You can feel it right there. And good grinding there, but it's most certainly a paleo point. That's no Capina. And found very, very close to where he's found some Greenbriers, but either way, I wanted to kind of show y'all what my beliefs are. We go, gosh, the Greenbrier has straight bases. They have, lobed bases. They have concave bases. They have all different types of bases, and it makes it very difficult to actually ID. Here's a Greenbrier found in a creek. Most definitely the lobed footed base. Fluting strike, which is very common for the Greenbriers. They always have a good thinning strike, good flute almost up the middle. And again, coming from the Clovis, she's a touch thicker and been tumbled around in that creek a good bit. But if you can't see the similarity in that base, then I can't help you. But this basal style, I'm a firm believer that this style, and this one's in transition, but this style, 365, points 365, I know you found one like this. And I've even had people online tell me this is not a Greenbrier, this is a quad. And it is not a quad. It is most certainly, you see the little nick, it is most certainly a Greenbrier, but what it is the morphology or transition from what is a firm paleo point, which I believe they evolved from the quad before they got to the Clovis, but it's got that whole quad type look to it, and everything else. So I mean, just again, my theory might be a little off there, but it most certainly came from the Clovis. And it really reflects what is a quad style looking base. But you know, and here's another one, and again you see the big fluting strike up it. Here's another one looking more like a pine tree, and they're most often mistaked for a pine tree. And I know there's such thing as a lobed kirk or lobed pine, but that would be the wrong identification on this bad boy. You see that huge bullseye in the piece. Huge bullseye, secondary flaking. That's, you know, another major ID key as far as, I'll show you a piece that's got straight base with an insane secondary flaking. And again, you see the big fluting strike right up the middle, right in the bullseye as well. That's just gorgeous. A little rougher piece of material, and it had a big quartz inclusion right there, you can tell. It just kind of slowly crumbled out of it. But back in the day, that would have been just one stellar freaking piece. Still is. Ooh, and this is definitely got to be my favorite Greenbrier I've ever found. The sheer fact that puppy survived is beyond me. Look at that blade edge. It's still so sharp. Just some outstanding workmanship on the piece. But again, you almost have the one-footed side, the lobe side almost starting. You have a little bit of a lobe, you have the straight side right there. It really reflects what is, I mean, I've talked about it when I found it, but the Eden point, or the Eden, yeah, the Eden, gosh, I believe that's found more out west, but it is very similar as far as being what is a transitional paleo type piece. This side has a lot more of the pine tree characteristics. And again, it has two big, this sticker here, and it marks the site G for Greenbrier, though it looks like a 6. Big fluting strike up the middle here, and you've got another one right there. You just, yeah, thinning strike right there in the middle, but either way, killer freaking piece of material. Killer example of another Greenbrier, straight base and slash lobed. Just a little bit of a combination. And yes, some of these characteristics depend on the maker, but this is what would be considered the traditional classic Greenbrier. And I've got big Sandies. Here, we'll snag this big Sandy just to show y'all. Big Sandies are much different if you want to look at those bases, and the big Sandies probably came after these Greenbriers, but just much different than your traditional. Look at the notching, different. The way the ears end are different. These have been resharpened all the way down. The ears are almost flaring out or up or whatnot, which is another characteristic of a Greenbrier, but that is a stellar big Sandy. And I've got multiple big Sandies in here that just do not reflect the size, thickness, and style of the point. Big Sandies aren't serrated. Very rare to see a big Sandy serrated, but again, that is the lobed Greenbrier, or excuse me, concave base Greenbrier right there. Definitely ground. Got the serrations. Almost no beveling, which you see like leaned beveling, like, you know, just from resharpening on a Greenbrier. You don't see the steep left-hand bevel on a Greenbrier ever. And again, this is just a smoking example, and probably made by the same son of a gun. I mean, look at that base. Same son of a gun, same time period for sure. And again, you got a good thinning strike or whatever for the hafting region. Again, you got another thinning strike on that side. Very ground base. You can feel the ground hafting region on the sides, but in the serrations, slight little lean, which is seen throughout time. It's just not a left-hand bevel from an early archaic piece, but this is a firm early archaic, probably about 9,000 years, 9,005. These back here, this one especially, is about probably 10,500 in here, 10,000. getting closer to like 9,800 years. Then you know, from the footed style all the way to the straight style, and this one down here, I would bet we probably have at least 1,000 years of time on this table of different Greenbriers, at least 500. They were made for quite a while. They were made for quite a while, but, and then, you know, we'll get into the straight base here, and they can be straight base Greenbriers as well, which make it very difficult to identify. But again, you see these fluting strikes, good fluting strikes. There's a double right there. You flip it over, he's got another single on that side right here, just thinning his base out for hafting. You know, the basal is beveled. We got a little slight bevel to the base, you know, to the base, matching what is the blade edge. Like Josie said, a little thicker on one side, a little thinner on the other. I'm not sure, you know, if that was just the material and the way he was working it, but I wish the lighting was good, because another killer ID key is all the secondary edge work, which this thing has secondary edge work all the way around it with some big overshot, big percussion type flaking. The base even has the detail work all the way around it. The lighting is not doing this thing justice, but it looks like a Clovis. Very similar to this piece here, where it has all the secondary edge work around it. And that big fluting strike drove up through the middle just to erase what is all the, you know, the overshot and percussion flake scars. But absolutely stellar. Absolutely stellar, and most definitely a direct descendant of the Clovis. And wanted to get to this puppy right here. You know, I had somebody call it a Dovetail, and I brought out the Dovetail, the clipped wing version, especially because, you know, it does kind of, here, let's put it right here. It does kind of have a similar slanted, almost clipped wing look. But if you get down here and you look at these, the bases on these things are polished flat. I mean, super heavy, super heavy. This one is not polished flat like that. It is very ground, but it is just not polished like that. Those things are just on another level. And the notching, again, I just don't think the notching quite lines up. The serrations, the flaking, you know, to have the left-hand bevel with 0 serrations on it. And I know I just got done showing all these that don't have any left-hand bevel, but this, in my opinion, would be one of the later stages of a Greenbrier. It's got the fluting strike all the way up it. A really nice fluting strike right there, thinning strike, whatever you want to call it. This, in my opinion, would most certainly be a Greenbrier. Best guess, just like any of this stuff. Best guess wins, but until somebody can show me otherwise. But just kind of wanted to show those. And somebody had asked, you know, how do you tell the difference between, because yeah, this one has the Kirk ears, similar to the Kirk ears or whatnot, but I mean, the thinning strikes and the secondary edge work is a dead giveaway for a Greenbrier. I mean, Kirk stemmed, or excuse me, Kirk corner notch right here, almost no grinding on the base. The flaking, I mean, look at the workmanship. It's just gone way downhill. The Kirk corner notch is the last early archaic point, one of them made next to the McCorkle, last in line. When they say the Kirk cluster, it's really the pine tree and Greenbrier cluster that ends in the Kirk corner notch. The Kirk corner notch loses tons of quality, tons of workmanship. It's the very last sucker ever made. And yeah, it's just almost no grinding on the piece. But again, just wanted to show what was. Check those bad boys out. Showed you that case one more time, and again, thank y'all for watching. I just kind of wanted to put my 2 cents in on what was a Greenbrier, baby. And Josie, one huge congratulations again on that freaking Cumberland. Ooh, baby. All right, boys. Till the next one. See ya.